My name is Kuldip Randhawa. I'm a professional engineer who was falsely investigated in April 2005 and I was suspended in August 2005. I was investigated for a water tank that was not even built. That statement says it all. Since that time, I've had numerous problems in which I have been writing to many institutions, appealing to the public, appealing to the parliament, and writing to many masters and justices in court, advising them that there's serious issues taking place in this country. This video concerns itself with the crime of criminal entrapment. It's a new crime that's been exposed, one that has continued unnoticed for quite some time. If I can explain the degree of this crime being extreme, why this video is now being made concerning the family proceedings in which my wife has been criminally entrapped by lawyers and justices. To provide an explanation of what is really happening here, I have to first give you a couple of examples being a professional engineer. If an engineer designs a beam and a mistake is made, and the engineer has to tell the client upon realizing that a mistake has been made so that the beam can be corrected and the client will not be harmed as a result of that. The engineer can then potentially be subjected to misconduct, but not for ethics. Ethics would be taking place if the engineer does not tell the client that the beam is defective. When the engineer discloses to the client that the beam was incorrectly designed, a mistake has been made and is being corrected, that is not an unethical issue. That may be one of incompetence. So that the public can understand the heinous crime that I'm talking about here for criminal entrapment by lawyers and justices, I have to give another example where a client has hired an engineer and that engineer intentionally makes a mistake in the beam, where the engineer is paid to do a design and the engineer intentionally makes the error so that the beam will fail and collapse and the person who has paid me or paid the engineer ends up dying. That is an extreme case. It's not misconduct, it's almost a serious criminal offense equivalent to murder. Now that you understand the extremity of this situation, the criminal entrapment I'm talking about here is by lawyers and justices, where the evidence is clear enough to understand that a crime is taking place where neither the lawyer or the justice potentially are making correct decisions. They're fully aware of the crime and they're carrying on with this crime. To explain what criminal entrapment is, it's actually used by the police when they are investigating a criminal such as a drug dealer. So the drug dealer is known to commit crimes, but the evidence is not sufficient. And so the police have to make sure they have an airtight case to make sure that when it goes to court, this criminal who's a drug dealer will be arrested. And so a sting operation is done. That sting operation involves the police going in plain clothes, pretending to be making a deal, buying drugs. They may even have some bait money so that the drugs can be purchased, where that bait money has to be accountable to the Crown or the police authorities. And so the responsible person is the police officer who has to sign off for that. And so now the evidence is collected. Then it goes to court, and then the person who's doing the crime can be arrested and imprisoned and charged. There is a case where a lawyer would then provide defenses to this criminal so that he can get off, where he would plead before the judge that the police were doing criminal entrapment and they've exceeded the boundaries and they didn't have enough evidence because this person was not really a criminal and they just started a bogus investigation. When that happens, the criminal may potentially walk away. So all that effort by the police is wasted. So now you know what a criminal entrapment is. It's done through a lawful means because the criminal has to be caught where the police authorities don't have maybe sufficient brains to capture this guy, or the law is so biased that they want to have this guy imprisoned, and so they are kind of breaking the law to enforce the law and make sure the criminals are arrested. What I'm talking about is a lawyer who represents a client. The client in this particular case is my wife, Mrs. Randhawa, who has been criminally entrapped by a lawyer. That is not done. That is a heinous crime because no lawyer can go to court and do coercion and make sure that false evidence is induced so that the client is then entrapped. When a lawyer tells the client that what you're doing is lawful, give the evidence, when actually it's not lawful, then the lawyer is actually entrapping the client, who is not a criminal, who's actually relying upon the lawyer to give proper legal advice. Just as an engineer would give proper advice of engineering to a client that there's something wrong here and engineers cannot design beams poorly. So now that you understand this is really what's happened here. Once the client has been misinformed of the law, the person responsible for the crime is not the client. A new crime has been exposed. Most lawyers would not talk about it because they're the ones involved in it. Most justices would not talk about it because it would bring down the system of legal justice as we have it. The very essence of going to court is to present facts, not lies. And this is what's happening in Canada. A nation that is graded as being number 2 in the world in terms of human rights. A nation where the First Nations people were harmed. And it's still continuing through cultural exploitation. There will be another video made on that later. So now the client has given false information because why would a person like my wife go to court and pay taxes when they're not owed? In order to explain what's really happened in these family proceedings, E055286, family proceedings are about families. It could be a divorce. It could be about custody of children. It could be about other issues, not necessarily a person divorcing each other. And so when that happens, where criminal offenses are committed so that the previous crimes done by the institutions like the CRA and the crimes done by lawyers from the law firm Lawson and Lundell, who acted for my former brother Manjeet Singh Randhawa, concerning a high-rise site where my shares were stolen, the control is taken away, the property was stolen through a case planning conference despite the Chief Justice Christopher Hunkson making an order for a judicial inquiry. So I filed the application, and that application to this date has not been heard of 2 days. You cannot make a final order in a case planning conference. The application before Justice Murray in June of 2017, when I was recovering from 3 ICBC accidents, that judge knew that I was exposing a fraud. That judge knew that I was the only shareholder. It's not a case anymore that these judges did not understand. It's not a case anymore that the lawyers did not understand. They are fully aware of the crimes and they continue with the knowledge that the institutions are not going to investigate them, and that the judges perhaps continue on the basis that the Judicial Council will not investigate them. Those crimes are committed knowingly in a country such as Canada, and is continued for years and years now. And so why is my wife doing all these things is because she's truly not the failure here. The system has failed. The politicians have failed. The judges have failed. The lawyers have failed. And so no one speaks about it. The media has not spoken out. Why? Sikh institutions like the World Sikh Organization has not done anything. Why? I'm entitled to ask these questions now because you have mocked my life in such a way that you guys don't really deserve any respect. You've lost the respect. You have ignored the laws of this nation. The rule of law does not apply. In the proceeding, when matters are being concluded, which should have been concluded in the commercial file, you're actually doing a collateral attack. You're concealing the crimes in family proceedings which are required to be confidential. This is not done. When the judge made an order that this trial was going to be adjourned, and I need to step back a bit because really the divorce was filed and then discontinued before. So the second proceedings is the E055286. How can you commence the same proceeding on the same claims? So on the first day of trial, I was on the phone because I did not attend due to my health reasons. Madam Justice Choi clearly stated to me that if you want to adjourn the trial, there were two grounds upon which I was seeking adjournment. The first was I needed to find a lawyer. To address that issue, I think everybody now knows that once you've been declared vexatious or considered as vexatious, which is incorrectly done in this case, it's an indication to lawyers to not come forward. So it's my view that Madam Justice Choi was fully aware that no lawyer was going to come forward. So that was not going to be considered as part of the adjournment. She wanted to go ahead. She wanted to cause harm to me. And then the other grounds upon which the adjournment was going to be given was that I was going to give a sick note. The order was made on the bench. Once made, it was explained to me by the lawyer, Ron Hunnick, who has done the criminal entrapment, that once an order has been made, it has to be followed. For that order to be set aside, there has to be another hearing to set aside that order. And that order, once it's made, has to be followed. It has to be followed by the judge who made it. The order was that I'm supposed to provide a sick note the following day on October the 1st. When I had advised them that I had an appointment with a doctor the following day, requiring me to come to court when I'm required to come with a sick note when I've made the appointment on October 1st was unreasonable. But nevertheless, I complied. A sick note was provided 3 times. It was sent to the law firm, fully explaining what has happened and why I'm seeking the adjournment. It was also sent to the court. Because you have a lawyer here, Ron Hunnick of Zuckerman Law, that has broken serious laws, numerous laws, and has continued despite multiple notices to cease and desist, which means you stop doing the crime and you continue. You're now committing a separate offense. Then I notified you again and you still continue. That's another separate offense. And it goes on. And you've done this for 2 years now. And you would explain that I don't owe any taxes. And then you was given an affidavit with all the evidence there that the sick note was provided because you continuously abused the laws and deceived the court. I wanted to make sure that the evidence was going to go before the judge. And so Madam Justice Choi was fully aware of that because an affidavit was filed. So the trial should have been adjourned. And then you continued taking evidence because the whole purpose of this proceeding was to take false evidence from my wife, who has now been deceived by the lawyers. The deception is also afterwards when the trial continued. After numerous notices were given to Ron Hunnick that there's a crime taking place and I don't owe any taxes to the government, and so taxes are being stolen. The properties that were going to be developed by the Oasis Partnership, which is another video on that. So there's a high-rise site that was stolen, where my shares were taken away, and the subdivision project of 37 lots, where 5 lots were being retained, where fraudulent charges were registered in 2010. The divorce proceeding took place in 2019. So that means CRA had over close to 10 years to remove those fraudulent charges, and they did not. The reason the fraudulent charges were registered was because the crime had to be committed. They continued on the knowledge that in Canada, lawyers can do crimes. Justices can do crimes. And then you expect us to come to court and say you're honorable. Well, you're not. And I've just proven it. How does a person bring an application to adjourn the trial when I am prevented from filing documents in the court? Where does it say that a person who is vexatious, not that I am vexatious, but let's just assume that I was. Does it mean to say that someone who sues a vexatious person that I can't file, or that person cannot file a response or affidavits? How many times are you going to use this vexatious order which is incorrectly applied, where Justice Verhoeven knew that the crimes were taking place and I went to court for a public inquiry? So really what's happened is that judge was fully aware. It's not the case that he was not aware. All the lawyers standing in front of them who were respondents, acting for those lawyers who had let me down, who had walked away, all of those lawyers were fully aware of the crimes. And lawyers acting for the respondents in the petition S147600 are also aware of the crimes. And then the adjournment was not made. Then I advised the court that I want to bring an application to recuse the judge, which means a judge is biased and broken the law in this particular case, that that judge has to be removed. And how does one do that when you can't file documents? When this illegal form that's always presented, Rule 18, vexatious proceedings. The actual vexatious proceedings were the ones commenced against me, where lawyers are walking away at the 11th hour. Each time a lawyer walks away, they make money. They're paid to walk away, even if they're not corrupt, if they're afraid, or they're threatened, or they feel that the same kind of things are going to happen to them that have happened to me. And you're walking away, you have actually broken the ethics. And not only that, because you now fully are made aware by me that these are crimes taking place, you are now supporting those crimes. So there's a police investigation underway, which eventually will take place. And you're continuing with the crimes. So I'm reaching out to all of those families out there. What you've done to me is not acceptable, but it's not about you anymore. It's about protecting my wife, because a new crime has been exposed. Just as one day the material asbestos is now exposed, everybody knows that asbestos is a dangerous product and it has to be removed from buildings, and now it's being removed. So we all know about that. A new crime has been exposed. It's time for all those Sikhs to come out, all those family members to come out, all those people who actually were with me dancing on the floors in weddings. If that had any meaning to you, if there's any self-respect left within you, I expect you to do the right thing. Because this crime that's taking place here cannot be allowed. It's a crime where our honor is being played with, and it needs to stop. The farmers' protest in India, a lot of people are becoming aware of what's going on there. The same thing has to happen here in Canada as well. We need to be awoken as to what's really happening here are serious crimes. My wife, I'm appealing to her. What you've done is not right. I'm not happy with it. As an honorable person, I'm not going to come home. I want you to realize yourself that what you've done is wrong. And if the family members are not going to come forward and assist and explain to you, if the WSO is not now going to step in, then what purpose do you really serve? Why do you keep on telling people and collecting money from people that you want to help the Sikhs, and then you ignore? What are you doing? You're trying to promote your own families? So I need to bring this video to a close by saying one thing. You need to understand that the honor of our people cannot be played with. This is old thinking that cannot work anymore. We have our rights, we are decent individuals, and we require equal treatment under law. So do the right thing, guys, and put an end to this. Thank you.